Alright, so we're finally talking about the Mobula6 2024. I've had this for a while, and I've delayed the video a little bit because the availability of this model has been delayed. So I know that some other channels have put out their videos on this, and probably, if you've seen their videos and put pre-orders in for this, you're probably going to get the first batch of these. I can't guarantee that. I have no idea how the whole first batch thing is going to work out. I've gotten kind of conflicting information about that. If you haven't ordered it yet and you haven't put it pre-ordered in, you're obviously going to be in the back of the line, so you may not get in on the first batch. And I don't know when the next batch is going to be. Kind of a lot of mixed signals about this product because of the VTX chip shortage. I mentioned that in the last video on the batteries, and with these shortages, I'm sure there's a lot of questions about that. I have no information about that, so if you happen to ask those questions, I don't really have any answers for you in terms of like how things are going to play out. My only advice to you is if you want this, probably put the pre-order in now and just wait, and eventually as the queues are cleared out, your order will ship eventually. Now, for those of you who are like, hey, you can just build these, these light ones, no problem. And yes, for sure, I will definitely show you later in the video. I have built many of these light ones, ultralight ones, that actually weigh less than this in previous videos. I have done that. So for those of you that are like, hey, you can build them, and you're like, where are those videos? I'll link those down below in the video description. I've done many videos on how to build super light tiny whoops. But then I get a lot of complaints. Oh, it's too hard. I don't know how to solder tiny parts, or I don't want to solder tiny parts. So where's the ultralight binding? And for those of you who have been looking for that, this is the one that you can get right now. Well, apparently you have to wait because there's a shortage. But if you don't want to build, can't build, and you want to get something in this sort of weight range, this is the way to go, unfortunately. And right now, until Beta FPV comes out with their competing product, which again, I don't know when that's going to come out, and there's no way for me to know on that either. There's no competition in terms of getting the weight down to this level, which is, for this one, is 17.7 grams. Alright, so with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and just talk about what makes this so light. There's a number of new parts here in, obviously, this 2024 edition. And of course, we got the new updated frame, this ultralight frame. They did send me a couple samples of this in the white and this charcoal color. And the white one's kind of hard to see in camera. They're the same, just different colors. And let me show you the weight of this versus the Meteor 65 airframe. So this is the Mobula6 2024 frame. It's coming in at 2.84 grams. And this is the Meteor 65 airframe. And basically coming in about the same weight. But just comparing the two frames, you can see there's significant differences in how they're put together. I guess Beta FPV still has the little arrow here, which is kind of dumb. I'm not sure why they kept doing that, but the Mobula6 frame does not have that anymore. And then you can see the way the spokes are arranged a little bit. There's 6 of them on here, the straight lines going out, and over here they have this sort of split here into, like, basically starts with 3. So there's, I guess, better motor support here. I'm not sure if that makes that much difference. And then it splits out here in a curved fashion. Both frames are extremely flexible. And we'll talk about why that's important a little bit later. But in order to get the weight as low as possible, you just have to, it's not going to be as stiff as with more, just have less plastic. So I have crashed this a fair amount. I haven't done any intentional crashing, but just flying around the house, nothing too crazy. Ran into furniture, crashing onto the ground, that kind of stuff. It's held up pretty well. Nothing's broken, at least not yet. So if you're worried about that, I would say I wouldn't be terribly concerned unless you are going to be crashing it significantly, like a ton. Then you maybe want to go with something else, and I'll talk about what that might be a little bit later in the video. But yeah, in order to get the weight down, they have significantly reduced the weight of the frame. So all new frame here for this year. They have a new canopy. So this plastic canopy here that holds this camera, which is also new and is made specifically for this camera. So this is a camera from FXT. Talk about that here a little bit later and as well. It's, in a nutshell, it's got a slightly larger field of view than, say, like the RunCam Nano from like a few years ago. It's pretty bright, so you can fly it in like low light conditions. Yeah, obviously it's got a pretty big lens, but it's also a bit heavier. So if you want to get the weight of this down overall, then you maybe want to swap this camera out. You could do that. I'm not a huge fan of this canopy. It is kind of a harder plastic. It does have a lot of vibrations, so if you fly this outdoors in bright sunlight, you'll see lots of jello. But if you fly it indoors, you can't see any jello at all. It's not a big deal. So the motors on here have been around for a while. These are like a second generation 0702 28,000 kV. And I'm not sure if I've flown this one much. I've flown the first generation quite a bit. It is, I think typical happy model type motor is, it's like good enough, not bad, but not amazing. So it does have a bit of bearing noise. Like it's a solid motor. It's like, I think it'll handle a lot of abuse, but it's not like out of the box like a perfect motor. Like for example, the newbie drone one from the Hummingbird upgrade that I did. This is a really nice motor. It's a bit heavier, really smooth sounding. I'm not sure if it costs much more or not. But yeah, if you're really worried about how the motor sounds, and you don't worry about the cost so much, the newbie drone motors might be a little better. It's sort of like, happy models are I think they're good enough for most people, unless you're looking for something really special. It's a good motor, plenty of power, pretty efficient. And as I said in the when I did the video on the Beta FPV lava batteries, I think if you remember, there were like 4.5 minute flights on these compared to the tattoos. And then the battery in here fits in really tightly in this tray. So they do go in here, no problem, and it just hold in there. Unlike the old frame where the batteries might slide out, this is a very tight fit. And they do have these A30 connectors now, which have this little notch here, which the BT 2.0 does not have, but they will, they are still compatible. You have to kind of force it in a little bit, and it kind of pushes that notch to the side and will work. I do have some of these G&B 300 milliamp hour batteries with the A30 connector, and you can see here that where that notch is right there. That's what it looks like. And of course, that's what this is intended for. However, this battery is too fat, it's too thick, will not go into this tray at all. I suppose I could force it in there, but I'm worried that if I do that, then this plastic here is pretty thin on the top and the bottom here. And if you put a battery in there that is too thick, it might break that tray. So I didn't want to do that, so I did not test those batteries because they just would not go in here. The Beta FPV batteries fit no problem, as well as the tattoo batteries. And I did a video on that already. Now I recommend that you take the sticker off on the Beta FPV batteries and on the tattoo batteries, because they do get can get hung up on these on the tray here, because it's a very tight fit. So on the tattoos and some, not necessarily on the Beta FPVs, they'll just slide through because the sticker goes all the way around. But on the tattoos, the stickers will get hung up and they'll start peeling off anyway. So you want to just peel off all the stickers, and you'll lose a little bit of weight as well, like maybe 1/10 of a gram from the stickers. And then no worries, they will not come out. This tray is perfectly matched for these two batteries, no problem. So those are the ones I recommend for this one. So the secret to getting this weight down on this model is it's called the Super X ELRS. This is the analog version. It's got this sort of curve in here. So for those of you wondering if they'll work in the Meteor 65 Pro frame, probably will. I haven't tested that, but I'm pretty sure it will. There was a version of this came out earlier that did not have the VTX on board, and I believe it was just called the Super X. And now they have integrated the VTX in here as well as a serial Express LRS receiver. So it's not a SPI, it's serial. And so it's got, it's got a ton of stuff in here. So it's a 5 amp, 4 ASC. I think it's BlueJay firmware on here. And, you got your 4 North flight controller. You've got your VTX in here. It is an open VTX. I think you can do firmware upgrades on the open VTX. And it's, I think, 25 to 400 milliwatts max. And you've got the receiver on board. So I believe the board with the antenna is about 4 grams or around there. So that's the secret to getting the weight down, at least in this configuration with this camera and this canopy. I've done other builds, of course, here. This is the one from my second channel. This one has the Beta FPV board with a separate VTX, and these have the 30,000 kV 0702 Beta FPV motors. Again, I'll link these videos down below, but let me just show you some comparisons here. So the Mobula6 is coming in around 17.7 grams, but if you want to do a really difficult custom build, of course I don't think it's difficult, you can get the weight down a little bit more, 17.3 for this one. And then I did a Hummingbird conversion. I'll link that video down as well in the video description, 18.3 with all the newbie drones, all the newbie drone stuff here. So newbie drone motors, props, 65 millimeter frame, and newbie drone motors, and of course this still has the plugs. I also did a conversion on the Mobula6 ELRS that came out like 2 years ago, made it into a pusher, and this has the new HQ props here. These are the first gen. These are the 0702 26,000 kV. And they still have the plugs. I didn't do a direct solder, but I did change the connector to a BT 2.0 connector. And this one here is 17.6 grams. But, people always, when I was doing these kind of videos with the pushers and making a custom light build, people find that soldering everything is very difficult. So I get a lot of complaints about that, which is why you probably want to go with something that's pre-built. So again, it really depends on the kind of person you are, whether you want to build it or not. And if you don't, then you got to buy the Binafly. So the prop on here that I tested, it was the Gemfan 1208 prop. I'm probably going to do after this video switching out to the HQ prop, and I'll let you know what the differences are at some point in the future. But for this video, everything is just based on as it came as a stock configuration. So a few things to note when you test, when you're doing the battery. So for example, this. I wish they would have put like a 180 degree type of connector on here, so that it's kind of tricky to get the battery. You have to kind of bend the cable here like this. And so again, a 180 degree setup would be better. So I'll show you what you have to do. You have to basically put the battery in and then slide it all the way forward like this, and then you're going to plug in the battery. And then you can slide the battery back a little bit, but that's about the most that you're going to be able to get it back. So it is going to be a little bit, in terms of CG, a little bit forward. Obviously, there's things you can do to correct this, so you can see how much of a bend there is here in the connector. Not ideal. So what I may ultimately end up doing is obviously getting rid of this heat shrink here, and I'll desolder the wires and then resolder it so that it basically is coming, it'll do like a 180 U-turn. So it'll come out, the wires will come out this way, and then the connector will basically go that way. Yeah, so basically I'll be able to push it a little bit further back so that the battery will be, not as quite forward as it is right now. Not sure when I'm going to be doing that, but it doesn't seem to affect the flight characteristics as far as I can tell, because I haven't done too much freestyle with it. You can definitely do some freestyle with this one if you wanted to. Here's some example flight footage of me just doing like power loops outside, and it does fly pretty well in the wind even. It has plenty of power to fly in wind, but not really sure how appropriate this is for outdoor flying. It's really meant for indoor racing. Now I did see a few videos where people were complaining about the PID tune on this one. I'm not sure, why they thought. I mean, obviously PID tunes are very subjective, right? So I didn't quite understand the reasoning as to why they didn't like it. They just, their opinion was they didn't like it, but they didn't give any reasons as to why. At least I didn't hear any reasons. But my suspicion, and this is just a guess as to why they may not have liked it. I personally think it's fine. I thought it was a little bit, I don't know, I guess I felt like it lagged a little bit initially. Like maybe there was a little bit of additional latency. And I got used to it, so it didn't really bother me after maybe the first couple of flights. And I just flew it, and I thought it flew fine. Like I thought it was predictable, controllable, and I was able to do what I wanted to do with the whoop. So, in my mind, that's a good PID tune. So, my suspicion is that because this frame is so flexible, so you can see how much this can, it can really bend a lot. And for that reason, I have a feeling they probably did some things to the filtering where there's more filtering to accommodate that, so the motors don't get too hot. And maybe that's why it doesn't feel as crisp. So there are other PID tunes out there, presets. I think there's like something called the Karate Tune and Beta and the Betaflight Configurator and a few others. I didn't try any of those because I didn't feel like I needed to switch over. But those are available if you want to switch those over. But I do, put in a word of caution that if you do that, make sure you back up the PID tune that's already on here. If you don't know how to do that, then obviously don't switch to PID tune because there's no way for you to get back if you don't know how to back it up. If you don't back up the current settings, you're going to have to get help, and that can be a lengthy ordeal. I should probably make a video about the dangers of, improving your quad when you don't know how to revert it back to stock configuration. I just would, if you just don't know how to go back to stock, then don't mess with it. Just deal with this because it's honestly, for those of you that don't know how to revert it back to stock, you really aren't going to be able to tell any difference between the stock configuration and one of those other PID tunes out there just because someone else said that that's better. And if for those of you that don't have the skills to do it, you won't be able to tell the difference. It's only those people that have flown a long time, that have a lot of experience, that can detect these little minute differences. If you're a beginner, I would just keep the stock tune here. I think it's fine for you. They'll be totally fine for those for you beginner flyers. With that being said, if you do want to try out some of the other tunes, after you've backed it up, you can switch over to those presets. I do caution you to check the motor temperatures on those. If those other tunes don't have the proper filtering, and the motors may get too hot, and you might burn them out. So, just a word of caution on that. But I think that's going to pretty much cover it for this model for now. I do have the Eco version of this, the HD0 version. Make a separate video on this one later. I haven't even actually flown this one yet. It's basically the same. It's got the same props, motors, frame. The only difference is that the flight controller is the digital version of the Super X. It's got no beta. What is it called? The Betaflight OSD chip is not on there, and no VTX, obviously, because you have the HD0 VTX. So I'll have a totally separate video on this one, but basically it's got the clear canopy and frame of this one. A little bit heavier, of course, for the HD0 parts. Anyway, stay tuned for that video later. Got any questions about this one, let me know in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.